things you need to know before taking the leap. I'm Kalie with Expats Everywhere.
And I'm Josh, and this channel is all about moving, living, and traveling abroad. We've been living abroad for over 15 years, and we used to live in Spain. What's the cost of living? What if you don't speak Spanish?
Where should you live? How do you move legally? Let's break down Spain.
Location, location, location. You always hear that, right? So where in Spain is good for you? Spain is a big country with a variety of sizes of cities that will have their own flair. We always hear about the sunshine in Spain, but the north can actually get cold enough to snow.
There are 17 autonomous communities in Spain. Mainland Spain is located on the Iberian Peninsula in Europe, with Portugal to the west, France, Andorra, and the Bay of Biscay to the north, the Mediterranean to the east, and Gibraltar in the south.
That's mainland Spain. There are also islands if you want to get that island life. Madrid is the capital and the largest city in Spain. It's right in the center of the country and is a good option if you're looking for a big city feel.
Of course, Barcelona is another great option if you're looking for a large city on the Mediterranean. We know that not everyone wants that big city though, so if you want something that's a little smaller but still have the sunshine and heat, then you have Valencia, which is growing in popularity.
Valencia is smaller than Barcelona, but also on the water and is a mix of old and new. You can head further south and stay by the water in a place like Malaga, or move a bit inland to Sevilla. These are also major urban areas with all sorts of amenities.
Let's just note that it does get quite hot in the south of Spain in the summer with those temperatures. The breeze of the water is helpful if you're on the coast, but places like Sevilla and even Madrid that are landlocked can get pretty hot.
But on the other hand, winters aren't too cold. Snow in most cities in Spain from Madrid and south is rare. Obviously in the mountain ranges and further north, you can catch snow. The northern part of Spain along the water will get rainy in the winter, and more inland there will be snow.
So there's actually a variety of climates around Spain. If you don't mind cooler winters and possible snow, the north might be for you because you can escape the super hot summers. If that's not for you, head further south, but be prepared for summer to be hot.
So you have an idea of what region to live in, but how do you get a visa? There are a variety of different visas to explore.
If you're an EU citizen, you don't need a visa, but you do need to register your address at your city's town hall and show sufficient funds and health insurance.
For non-EU citizens, you'll need a national visa. We aren't going to cover every single one, but we are going to name a few and give you resources in the description.
A popular visa is the non-lucrative visa, or NLV. You can't work on this visa, but have to show proof of sufficient means, which currently is 4 times the amount of Spain's public multiple effects income indicator.
There are also the investment visa or golden visa if you have a large amount of money. There are a few different options of where you can invest and how much.
You can of course find work in Spain and use the employee visa, which you'll need to be at least 16 years old and have a work contract. The student visa is also another option, which of course is what it sounds like, but it also includes being an au pair.
Like what you used to do. The last one we'll mention is the digital nomad visa, which is for those who are self-employed or remote workers. You have to work and receive a salary from a foreign company, and it has to be at least twice the amount of Spain's minimum wage.
If you would like to speak with a company about your visa options, then feel free to email us and we'll put you in touch with reliable ones depending on what visa you're interested in.
Yep. Now, do you need to speak Spanish to live in Spain? I guess the answer really is it depends. First, it depends on where you're going to live, as some parts of Spain have their own language. While of course they will know and speak Spanish, there are places that prefer to function in their own language, for example, Basque in Bilbao or Catalan in Barcelona.
Having a good understanding of Spanish will be helpful though, as Spain's English language proficiency is moderate, with some of the larger cities being a little higher due to more tourism and people from other countries moving there.
As with any place, we highly recommend you to learn the language, so it's best to try learning Spanish. Do remember that European Spanish and Latin American Spanish are different.
So what would be an ideal monthly budget?
In a bigger city like Madrid or Barcelona, a single could comfortably live on 2,500 euros a month, but obviously this depends on your lifestyle. For a smaller city, 2,000 euros is doable.
Rent, of course, will vary depending on where you live. For a one-bedroom apartment in the city center of Madrid, let's say, it's going to be around 1,500 euros, whereas a one-bedroom apartment in the city center of Valencia will be closer to 1,000 euros. Of course, location and amenities will need to be taken into consideration because that will affect the cost.
Absolutely. Your inland regions will, of course, have cheaper rent. Idealista is a good resource for finding housing.
Prices in grocery stores have risen a little bit in the past few years, but for example, a liter of milk is around €1 and a kg of apples is around €2.
Where have prices not gone up? Having a meal at an inexpensive restaurant will be around 15 euros in bigger cities and closer to 10 euros in smaller cities and towns. And also you can find some really amazing deals across the country by having your biggest meal out at lunch and ordering the set menu of the day.
Numbeo is a great resource to compare costs, so check out their website for a more comprehensive look from city to city.
All right, so we used to live in Spain. Why did we leave? And would we ever move back there?
What do you think? Would you move back?
Well, are we gonna get to that point right now? Let's actually talk a bit about what we've noticed traveling back into Spain, as we currently live in Portugal and we've traveled to Spain a lot over the past few years since living here. Why do we keep traveling back there? There's gotta be a draw that keeps pulling us back, right?
I think maybe the food.
You think the food? Well, I think there's a variety of things. One, it's inexpensive for us to get there from Portugal, so that's kind of a pull. We have plenty of friends that live there. There aren't many places in Spain that we haven't actually visited, so I think that we have, when we lived there, I mean, we visited almost every region, bar a couple, but since moving back to Europe and living in Portugal, we've now visited them all.
All of them, yes.
Yeah, so for us, having lived in Madrid, I think at that time especially, maybe we were a bit scarred with the capital kind of culture there. I think Madrid is a very hurried and rushed city, certainly by European standards. It's less relaxed than the rest of the country. The work culture is a faster pace. We were definitely, in the right time of life to be doing it in our mid-20s. But now we don't want that, so I don't think I'd want to go back to Madrid. Madrid was a little too rushed, but there are other places that seem very interesting.
Right, I think that the stage of life we were in, then Madrid was really fun. So being in your early mid-20s, it was really good because it's so go, 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 and there's a lot of things to do. So I don't know if I wouldn't say I'm necessarily scarred. I'm saying I enjoyed it for that stage of life, but now the stage of life I'm in and probably all the different stages moving forward would not be Madrid because we know how crazy and hectic it is. But it was good for that, which is what we wanted. Maybe something now that's a little slower paced, like Valencia or somewhere in the south, could be nice, although it does get hot.
Well, it does. I'm just kind of thinking like big cities are good for families. There are families that live in big cities, but I think what tends to happen is families grow into that city. So you have places that are high population, right? The major cities, high population. But being a foreigner moving into a big city like Madrid, it takes time to acclimatize, and maybe you just don't.
Yeah, so that can be tough.
I think that's kind of what's at play. And admittedly, we've noticed over the past 5 years, we've definitely become second city people. During the first 10 years of our living abroad, we traveled to certainly all the capital cities, and then we started to hit up some secondary cities and places and tertiary cities. But the secondary cities, or the second cities in each country, really drew us in.
Yeah.
I think it was because of pace of life and everything. So looking closer at a place like Spain, that's why I like Bilbao, I like Valencia. Bilbao, okay, has a little bit of rainier, cooler weather. Valencia, being on the Mediterranean, phenomenal.
Nice, yeah.
All year round.
I would say this, we don't live in Spain anymore, and we left kind of for a reason. We were a bit done with some cultural things. Maybe the language was a big thing too, because they're still quite behind as far as English language proficiency goes. So I think there were a few things after a few years of living there that we were like, okay, we need something different. So, and again, that might have been the Madrid big hectic city feel. We were just ready for something different. So there was kind of a reason that we left, wanting a bit of a change. Whereas maybe now I think it would be better in a smaller second city. We say smaller, but honestly, their second cities are so big as well. They have
compared
everything.
To Portugal's?
Yeah, they have everything you need. So it would be maybe less hectic, but still with all the amenities.
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring that up because I think that's what I meant by scarred. I think that there was this kind of mindset in Madrid that is different than the rest of the country. We found people in Madrid less friendly than other people in Spain, but that's not a big surprise. Here, we find people in Lisbon less friendly than other people around the rest of the country of Portugal. And
capital city stuff.
it's that capital city mentality. So I think there is that aspect of it that definitely played its part and might have scarred.
But what about Barcelona? Because we visited Barcelona, we've been there a bunch. Even moving back to Europe, we've been there a lot. So it's not as big as Madrid, but a bit of a rival city in a sense because of the size, but it's on the water, so very different.
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch real quickly on the language aspect of things because you brought that up when talking about maybe not being able to speak English very well. I think what happened is this was 2009, 2010, 2011. We saw that people were not treating foreigners very well if they did not speak Spanish.
Right.
And that frustrated us, even though we were speaking Spanish living there. Of course, like we said, we definitely recommend people to speak the local language wherever you're living. But also, it's really nice to show grace and kindness to foreigners that are coming into your country by speaking the global language. And right now, the global language is English. So just because we're native English speakers, it doesn't mean we're trying to sit high and mighty.
No.
It's just that it's the common language. If you go to Germany and you're Japanese, then you can speak English and kind of get around and function. And vice versa, if you're German going to Japan, you can do that as well. So all that to say, I think it's important to note that it can be challenging witnessing people struggle because they don't speak Spanish. And that wore on me. It's like, man, why can't you guys be a little more helpful?
Friendlier, yeah, because we did see that, actually.
In what we did notice in Barcelona is that if you didn't speak Catalan, at least at the time, it's almost like they would have preferred
English,
like doing the whole conversation in English than in Castilian Spanish.
Right.
However, I do think that has changed quite a bit. I think part of the reason the change has happened, and you can correct me in the comment section if you'd like to, is that there's been an influx of Spanish speakers, not from Spain, that have moved there and they work in the service industry. So they're not speaking Catalan, they don't know it, but they're speaking Spanish and basically covering kind of the tourist sector.
Right.
Tourism sector.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then overall cost of living, Spain is still very affordable.
It's very affordable compared to the rest of Europe. Yeah,
housing, groceries, eating out, drinking out, still very affordable and still very much so part of their culture to do the cafes, the restaurants, sitting outside, having wine, beer. So I really like that. I really like that as a cultural side of things. So you can do that and not break the bank.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most favorable parts of living in Spain. I think the culture is phenomenal. It gave us good vibes when we were living in Madrid. When we moved to Asia for 10 years, we had a longing, a yearning to get back to that Southern European feel, that culture. And, we chose Portugal this time, but Spain, right?
Yes, it has that as well. And it's so close to where we are now that's why we're there a lot.
Yeah, so usually we save this portion of the video to talk about a topic called Would You Expat That? And I think we should do that, but it's gonna be a longer answer, I think, this time. So I'm gonna ask you, Kalie, would you expat that? Would you wanna go back to Spain and live for not forever, but for a temporary amount of time?
I would say yes, I would expat Spain again, re-expat it or whatever you want to say, but I would not want to live in Madrid. Again, like we said before, just the stage of life we're in. We've already done it. We know how it is. We enjoy it. We've been back to visit, but I just wouldn't want to live right there in the middle of everything. I would choose a more second city, but still a big city. I wouldn't want to do a smaller town or a thing. And honestly, I could do somewhere in the north or I could do somewhere in the south. I think I'd be a little afraid of the heat in the south during the summers, but I think it would be doable depending on the city. And then in the north, I'd be okay if it's a little rainier, for the winters. Probably just wouldn't want snow. I wouldn't want it so cold that it snows or snows regularly.
Yeah.
And you?
Absolutely. My answer has not changed since the day we left, which Kalie was like, I never want to move back to the same country that we left. You said that, you remember?
Yeah.
And
yeah, that was a long time ago.
and I've you've reformed. So I've always felt like I could move back to Spain. Not saying that I want to or am going to, but I've always felt like I could. Had a great time there, adapted to the language just fine. I completely agree with Kalie in that I would not want to go back to Madrid, although we have some phenomenal friends that live there. Just that culture is not for me, and I know that. So I would want to go to a secondary city, a Bilbao, a Valencia, or even possibly a place that many people in Portugal that we know up here in the north in Porto have their eye on now, and that is Vigo.
Yeah, okay.
So those three, to me, I would kind of have an eye on. They would be interesting to me. You?
Yeah, I could definitely do a second, third city of Spain, just not a big one. Like we said, we live in Portugal and we've lived in Spain as well, so we compare the two right here. So see which one would be better for you. We also have a playlist with different Spanish cities if you want to take a look at the different cities. Now, let's get moving.
Bye.